Now, let's move to the next board where we will be talking about taking inputs from the users or getting the inputs from the users, right? What is the meaning? So here you go. If you want to take input from the user, you need to use this statement input. But let's talk somewhat in detail about these statements like print, type, input, what exactly these are, right? We are pretty sure that if I write a print and if I write anything inside this double quotes here, print statement is going to print that, right? Whatever it is. But maybe you should be curious to know that why it happens. At the end of the day, we know the computer architecture pretty well now, that how CPU works. At the end of the day, CPU is sending the signal to print this, right? So there must be somebody who has defined that this print meaning is whenever CPU execute this, basically it is going to be whatever you write inside the double quotes, it is going to be printed on the monitor, right? But who is that person who has defined this print, right? Believe me, print is a function, and we will be touching function a little bit today, right? What is a function? So leave programming. If I ask you what is the function of our heart, you must be thinking that this guy is mad or what? We all know the function of heart is to pump the blood, to circulate the blood, right? If I ask you what is the function of the mind, right? The function of mind is to ponder, to think, right? And there are so many things your mind can do, beautiful things. It means that every body part has some specific function. And if I say print also is a function, what actually it is doing, what is the function of print? And I'm saying print is a function. The meaning is it has one job to do. Whatever you write inside this double quote, it is going to print it, right? It is as simple as that. So who has written the code for this? What we are doing, we are just writing this print. Whatever we write inside the double quote, it is printed onto the screen. Who has written this? Believe me when I say in 1980s, actually Python was developed in late 1980s, around 1990. So it's my bad that in my starting few lecture I have told you, I informed you that the Python was built in 1980s. So correct that knowledge, correct that statement. Basically, it was developed around 1990 by Mr. Rossum. You all know that, right? And why Python named as Python, you all know about that too. So there is one mistake that instead of saying it was developed in 1980s, say late 1980s, right? So around 1990s. So when I say that Python is developed by this man, the meaning is basically this man is defining these things. He's writing some of the things, and now the Python community is so large. There are so many functions like this. But there are some functions which are inbuilt in your language. So when I say that you all need to install Python 3, right? What is happening behind the scene? Definitely there is going to be the interpreter who is carrying your file, converting them into the bytecode and eventually to the machine code. But along with that, when I say you need to install Python 3, believe me, these inbuilt functions are coming with the Python. And we call all these things, right, as library. What is library? You all know library contains books. It has information. And now Python library has information. Python library has these inbuilt functions. And every function is doing some specific job. For example, print is actually printing whatever you write inside the double quotes, inside this parenthesis. Type is actually giving you information about the type of anything, any variable you write inside this type, inside the braces, right? Very, very interesting. Similarly, somebody has written this input also. The main job of this input function is to take input from the user. Right now, what we are doing is we are adding two numbers, 20, 30, we define them. This is my number one, this is my number two, right? And add them. But what if I want to take input from the user? And that is where I need to use input function. So input function will wait for the user to enter something there and then move on. We will be talking about it. Do not worry about it. So I think there was some problem with my microphone. Please, can anybody confirm that? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the whole sole point of this board is to let you know that when you install Python, Python comes with a library, and inside this library, you are going to get many functions. And what you are doing, you are just calling these functions into your program. For example, this is your library, which comes with the Python. And when you write any program, hello.py, and you say print hello, basically Python knows the meaning of print is this one, which is inside the library, right? Somebody has written a code for it, right? And that is why try to understand how programming is simple. Try to assume that if you want to print something on the machine, right, you need to write the code for that. When you want to take input from somebody, you need to write the entire code for that. No, what you are doing right now is you are just taking the help of this library. I told you that if you write print here and if you write anything inside this double quotes, it is going to be printed. You are just using the library, right? For example, if you are using the if you are using the type, you are using the type function, which is defined, which is written by somebody in this library. And when you install Python, the entire library comes with it. If your library doesn't have the function which you need, maybe you need to download it from the internet. And believe me, Python community is huge. So many functions has been written. In fact, whenever you write a code, try to utilize the code of somebody else, because there is no point of doing all the hard work. Somebody has already done it, already uh, done that work for you, right? And if that is the case, you should be smart enough to know that where exactly that is, modify it along whatever you need, and then move on. There is no point of creating things from absolutely beginning, and we call them reinventing the wheel. And that is why basically the Python is very useful, because there is a huge community. Somebody has done that work. You just need to find the work, include that into your program, and then call it a day. Do not reinvent the wheel. It is as simple as that. Library is there, use it, and then, for example, if I write here print hello, it is going to print the hello. That is it. If basically there is a number variable, and if I write the type and number and print that value, right, it is going to print the value as definitely the integer. Although it is bool, this is wrong. It should be the integer, right? There is another function which I haven't talked about, like length, and there are so many functions like that. For example, if inside this length function, if you write a string, suppose you have written ABC, this length function is going to calculate the number of characters present in the screen. If you see here, there are 3 characters. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. So length function is going to return the value 3, length of the string. It is as simple as that. But now the question arises, how we can utilize this input function, which is built in library, to take input, to get input from the user. Now I want that the person, whoever is running this program, or the user, whoever is running this program, should enter this value of number 1 and number 2. And then I'm going to add it. It is going to be more closer to the real world. You cannot define all the times these two numbers, right? You might be asking these numbers from the users. And that is what we would like to do in the next program. So I have written a program here, and we need to understand it each and every line one by one. So basically, whatever I have written from here to here, this is actually my file, and the file name is add.py. It is as simple as that. If we talk about the first line of this file, very easy, right? It's just a simple print statement. And now I'm saying here, I have just written this star to showcase that I can print star. And I am here writing program to add 2 numbers. It is as simple as that. So it is going to be print as it is. Now, I am saying I am using this function input, and believe me, you can, whatever you write inside this input function in the double quotes, it is going to be print as it is. Then you must be thinking, what is the difference between this input and print? Print is going to print whatever you write inside this double quote, but it is not going to wait for user input. This function is going to wait for user input. For example, you are writing here, enter first number. If you write that, after that, it is, your program is going to be stopped there. It is waiting for the input. If you put the input inside, if you use your keyboard to press a number there and enter, then program will go on to the next line, and the next line is again another number. It is saying enter second number. But wait a minute, where these numbers are going? You all know, as I mentioned, that variables are going to be very, very important when you take input from the user. And that is the point here, right? You, customer or the user has entered the first number. It is going to be stored in num1. Very, very interesting. Then the second number is going to be stored in num2, whatever user has entered. And then we are going to calculate sum as usual. Num1 is equal to num1 plus num2. And then I'm writing print. This f is the for the formatting. You all know, if I write f here, I can call the variables inside it, right? So I'm writing here the sum of num1 means num1 is whatever the user has entered as a number one. Whatever his user has entered number two is this one. And when I write this program, when I run this program, of course, I need to write Python 3 and add.py. Add.py is my file name. The first print statement is very, very simple program to add two numbers, no doubt about it. And now, what is happening here? Enter first number. This first statement inside the input is showcasing on your monitor, and then it waits. It is waiting for your input, and user is intelligent enough, it has written 1. And then program has moved to the second print statement, sorry, second input statement, enter second number, and that's why you are here. What an interesting user. He wants to add 1 plus 1. But here is the output, which is even more interesting, right? The program is saying the sum of, I forgot to write off here, so you can presume here, the sum of 1 and 1 is 11. Very, very interesting, right? And if a kid is nearby you and he see this, even he can say, uncle or whatever you are, right? 1 plus 1 is not 11. 1 plus 1 is 2. Then maybe you can say that computer is a little bit getting philosophical here. If you are working alone and somebody join you, then basically you can say 1 plus 1 is just like 11, right? But believe me, you can say that to the kid, but did you get that why Python on earth is showcasing the sum of 1 and 1 is 11? It doesn't make any sense, right? So it is very, very important to understand what is happening behind the scene, right? We need to fix this problem because this is just that program to add two numbers and Python is not doing that correctly. We are pretty sure that when we run this program in the last class, it was running pretty happily, no doubt about it. But now if you see, the program is making a mistake. It's a big mistake though, right? So what is happening here is, see, try to think about it, that what is happening behind the scene. Basically, Python is understanding whatever you are entering, right? You entered 1. When program asks, enter first number, you enter 1. When programs say, okay, enter the second number, you again put 1. Believe me, Python is thinking that you are entering the strings here. And first string is going into number 1, second string is going into number 2, and if you add them, if you say num1 plus num2, what is going to happen? Python is going to concatenate them. It is going to do 1 and 1, and that is why the result is 11, because Python is presuming that whatever the user is entering the value on the program prompt, these values are strings. If these are strings, and that is the main motive behind whatever we discuss, those interesting operations, right? We can do this interesting operation. In fact, if somebody has entered the value of num1 as 10 and num2 as 50, Python is again understanding them as a string. It is going to give the result 1050. This is not the result which I want. I am not entering the string, Python. I am entering the integer values. But how and why Python is understanding them as a string? So till now we talked about various types of data like string, like integers, like floating, like boolean. By whatever we are entering through the keyboard, we need to make sure that maybe it should be a string, integer, floating point. What exactly we need to know what user is entering. I cannot know, computer cannot predict whatever you want to enter, right? Maybe somebody can see in this program, if computer is saying enter first number and you have written Vishnu, or maybe anything, Rahul, right? Anything. User can make the mistake, or user is some exploratory user, then he can definitely write these type of inputs. So basically, to avoid all these mistakes, we have defaults, right? Python programming language has this default that whenever user enter anything, I will presume that he or she is entering a string. It is as simple as that. And if Python is presuming that whatever we are getting as an input in this num1 is a string, if I do and check, if I do type and if I write num1 here, believe me, the type of this num1 is going to be string. And that is why this you are seeing this kind of operation. If you have any doubt about this concept, please ask. I'm just saying whenever user enters something, right? Python presume it as a string and it is doing the correct operation, right? So let's fix this problem in the next board. How we are going to fix the problem? First thing first, we need to explain to Python interpreter that whatever we are writing, whatever the user is writing, we are making a program to add two numbers, right? So presume whatever the user is entering is an integer, not string. And that is exactly what I'm doing. I will be using another function for that. And that function is actually the integer function. So whatever I write inside this integer function, inside this parenthesis, it is going to be presumed as the integer. For example, if I write anything, maybe 20, 30, whatever, right? Python is now going to understand that this is the integer, this is not the string. For example, we need to be very cautious when we define string, right? If I write num or if I write string is equal to Vishnu, I need to write this double quote so that Python understand this is my string, right? But for user inputs, whatever the user is inputting, basically Python says everything is string. I can convert it into integer using this integer function. And that is what I'm using here, right? I am putting this entire input statement inside the integer statement. Why? The reason is very, very simple. Now I am informing Python that whatever the user has input, it is not the string, but this is the integer. And now if you calculate the type, or if you want to find out the type of num1, believe me, it is going to be the integer. And if this is the integer, then this is also going to be the integer because I have used the same function integer here, right here also. The sum is going to be here num1 plus num2. And now you are seeing the end result, whatever you would like to see. Program to add two numbers. Enter first number 1, enter second number 1, and the sum of 1 and 1 is 2. It is as simple as that. So what we are doing here is we are having our add program and we are adding, or the addition program, we are adding some functionality into it. Very, very interesting. We have fixed the problem, right? Now, it is the time to add some logic into this program. These are the simple statement. We are having two numbers. We are just printing the sum of it. But what exactly the logic is? If you want to understand the logic, let's try to understand these two statements, right? Basically, logic is everywhere. You use logic in many statements in your daily life. Try to understand. Many times you say that when I feel